Today, I'll be showing you the first 25 things you need to do if you've just got your new AirPods 4 or AirPods 4 with Active Noise Cancellation. Now, these tips and tricks are going to help unlock hidden features, add new functionality, improve sound quality, and ultimately help your AirPods last longer. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, this first thing I want to show you is going to help you never lose your AirPods again. So a very important feature, but to enable this, you do need to make sure that some settings are set correctly, and then I'll show you how to do this. So first of all, you want to make sure your AirPods are opened and connected like they are here. And then from there on your iPhone, we're going to go over to the settings app, and then we're going to tap onto your AirPods. That should be the first option that you see here. And in here, we're going to scroll down to where we Find My Network. And you want to make sure that that setting is turned on. Now, if we close the settings app and instead open up the Find My app on your iPhone, this will be pre-installed on your phone. This is the icon that you want to look for. We'll now be able to locate our AirPods. So within the Find My app, we're going to tap onto devices, and here you'll see a list of all of your Apple devices. Of course, a lot here I will have to blur, but among this list, you want to make sure that you find your AirPods, tap on them, and that's going to give you a precise location for where they are. Now, let's say you're at home and you know that your AirPods are somewhere within your home because you see it on the map, but you don't know exactly where they are. You can also press this button here to play a sound. As you can see, that's going to play an audible, surprisingly loud sound here on the AirPods 4 with Active Noise Cancellation because they do have a little built-in speaker here at the bottom. Now, if you have the regular AirPods 4 model, you can still actually use this function, but instead the sound will play through the AirPods, so it won't be as loud, but it's nice that you still get this functionality. But if you still can't find them, you can also tap on the Find Nearby button here, and that's going to direct you to precisely where your AirPods are. So you get an arrow pointing you to the direction of the AirPods and then a countdown for the number of meters or feet that there are before you reach them. And again, you can play the noise from there. So this feature here within the Find My app, once enabled in settings like I just showed you, is a really useful way to essentially never lose your AirPods because no matter where they are, you should be able to find them. But this next feature I want to show you is going to help you not lose your AirPods to begin with, and that's going to help you be notified once you leave them behind. So let's say you are leaving your office, you're about to head home, and you leave your AirPods at the office. You will get a notification on your phone as you're walking out the door, letting you know that your AirPods have been left behind, so you can go back and get them. But of course, there is a setting here that we first want to enable, and this will be done once again within the Find My app where we were earlier. So once again, you want to go to your devices, select your AirPods, and then we're going to scroll down. And here under notifications, you want to tap on notify when left behind. And in here, first of all, you want to turn that setting on. And now, whenever you leave your AirPods within range, you will be notified with a notification on your phone. Of course, this is a very useful feature, but you don't want this to activate always. So let's say, for example, if you're leaving your home, you don't necessarily want every time you leave your door to get that reminder, or that notification. So you can add exceptions, and I recommend adding your home location here as one. You can add multiple locations if you like, but that way, excluding those locations, whenever you do leave your AirPods behind, you will get that notification so you can go back and grab them. Alright, so now that we know how to find your AirPods and then also not lose them to begin with, let's take a look at improving the sound quality and making it even better on the AirPods 4. Now, there's a special feature for this that we're going to turn on, and that is called personalized spatial audio. And to do this, we're going to go into settings and then once again tap onto your AirPods, and then from here we are going to scroll down to where we find personalized spatial audio right here. Then we're going to tap into that, and then we're going to tap onto personalized spatial audio, and it's going to give you a brief on-screen demonstration here of what it is that it's going to do. But essentially what this is going to do, and I'll show you this right now, is it's going to make a scan of both of your ears using the Face ID and camera sensors to get an idea of the shape of your ear. So we're going to tap onto continue and then type onto start, and hello everyone, there I am. And what you're going to do is put your face into view right here and then turn to the right. And then once again for the other side. And there we go, kind of like setting up a Face ID. As you can see, personalized spatial audio has now been set up, and the profile will now be saved to my AirPods 4s, and this will also carry over cross-device, so not just on your iPhone. Now, why is this important? Well, what this has essentially done is it has made a detailed scan of the shape of my ear, right? Everyone's ear is going to be slightly different, so with that specific scan of your ear, what the AirPods 4s will do now is they will personalize the sound specific to the shape and I guess you can say design of your ear to make the audio even better. This next feature is going to be specific to the AirPods 4s with active noise cancellation, and that has to do with adaptive audio and how to customize this and also quickly activate it. So first of all, to customize adaptive audio, we're going to go back into settings where we were before, tap onto your AirPods, and then once you get to this same screen, we are going to scroll down to where we find adaptive audio. And in here, you can choose which of the two you'd like adaptive audio to prioritize, either less noise or more noise. Now, if you don't know what adaptive audio is, what it is it's going to automatically adapt between noise cancellation and transparency mode depending on what it is you are doing, whether you are speaking with someone or whether there's a loud construction site in the background as you're walking past a busy road. It's going to then switch between the two, allowing in more or less noise. And you can also choose which you would like it to prioritize. And in my case, I suggest setting this to less noise, as this way the ANC feature will be on more predominantly more often, allowing less of that external noise to come in. So that's something that I definitely recommend. Of course, to switch between your different modes, you can go into noise control here and you can switch between adaptive or your transparency modes as well. However, a quicker way to do this is via the control center, where you can swipe down from the top right like so. And then from here, you want to make sure that, of course, your AirPods are connected. So I'm just going to put one in my ear here. And once they're connected, we can tap and hold on the volume bar. And in here, we're going to tap onto noise control. And then we can switch over to adaptive. You get this little rainbow colored background to make sure that adaptive mode is turned on. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Which AirPods are you using? Are you using the AirPods 4s or AirPods 4s with active noise cancellation, or are you using a version of the AirPods Pros? Let me know in the comments. And if you are enjoying this video so far, a like and a sub to the channel would be amazing. Alright, so now I want to show you some essential gestures for the AirPods 4, as there may be more than you think. So I'm going to put one of them in my ear here so I can demonstrate this. And the first gesture I want to show you is going to be a single press on the stem of your AirPod. And as you can see, a single press is going to either play or pause any audio that you have playing on your phone. A single press can also answer a call, if you like, as well. And then once you are in the call, you can also press once more, and that is going to mute the call. And then to unmute, you simply press again once more. Now, if you want to end the call, you can go ahead and double press. As you can see, that's going to end the call. And then in music, let's say we're playing a song here, we can also double press to go to the next song, or a triple press is going to bring you back to the start of the existing song. So 1, 2, 3. That's going to reverse the song, and then do it once more to go back to the previous track. And you can also quickly switch between your noise control options, so between transparency mode and active noise cancellation, by pressing and holding the stem. As you can see, I press and hold it now, and now we're over to noise cancellation mode. Do it once more, and that will bring us back to transparency mode. Now, this particular function can also be customized further, but I'll show you that in a bit. One more gesture that I want to show you that is really cool, that's going to be new with the AirPods 4 and AirPods 4 with ANC, and that is going to be head tracking control. And this is really cool, but first we need to activate this. So to do this, we're going to jump into settings, then go back to your AirPods as we see here, and then we're going to scroll down to where we find head gestures. There it is. And then you want to make sure that that is turned on. Now, as you can see, you can actually use your head, so basically nodding your head, to take, for example, a call or to reply to a given message. And you can also decline or dismiss a call by tilting your head left to right. So basically, yes, tilting up and down to answer your call, and then tilting left to right or shaking left to right to dismiss a call or basically say no. So this I actually find works really well. At first, when I heard about this, I wasn't sure how this would look, because you'd look a bit silly doing this in public, but you can actually be quite subtle with your gestures. You don't need to be nodding your head really abruptly. You can be quite subtle with it. It picks it up quite well, and you can also customize which of the two you want to associate with each gesture. So you can have a nod up and down either be to accept your call, or you can have it to be declined. I think that makes most sense, but you can also customize this if you like. And just over here in the second camera, very creatively done, I just want to show you how subtle these gestures can be. So if we tap onto try head gestures, we can go ahead and press continue here, and that's going to give us an opportunity to test these gestures. So we'll go ahead and do continue here. So move your head up and down. There we go. And then left to right. There we go. As you can see, that's quite subtle. I didn't have to like nod my head too fast or really shake it left to right to activate these gestures. So that just goes to show that I think this is quite useful, even if, say, you are out, especially when your hands are full and you want hands-free control of your AirPods. Okay, so one of my favorite features specific to the AirPods Pros is that you can actually control the volume of your music by swiping along the stem here of your earbuds. You can swipe up to increase the volume or down to decrease it. And unfortunately, this is a gesture that you will not find on the AirPods 4s. I'd really love to be able to add this somehow because I find myself adjusting my volume quite frequently, especially as I go between different genres of music or media types. So it's a really shame that you don't have this control. However, there's a secret way to kind of add volume control to the AirPods 4s, and I want to show you how to do this. So what we're going to do is jump into settings, and then in here we're going to go into accessibility, and then from here we are going to find vocal shortcuts. There it is, a vocal shortcuts, and then we're going to turn that on by tapping on setup vocal shortcuts. Tap on continue here, and then we can go ahead and choose an action. So let's go ahead and search here for volume. So you have volume up, volume down. Let's do volume up first, and then we can assign a phrase to that. So let's say volume up, of course, and then we're going to go ahead and say it. So hold on, let me go ahead and say it once again. Volume up. And there we go. So that action is now ready. And so now that volume up is added, let's add volume down as well. So we'll search here for volume once again, and then we'll tap on volume down. There we go. And the phrase will be the same, volume down. Great, so the action is now ready and we've got both. Let's put them to the test here. Let's pull up some music and watch the volume adjuster here move as I say this control. So let's take a look. Volume up. Volume down. And there we go. Just like that, we now have hands-free audio and volume control right on the AirPods 4s, even though that feature is not included out of the box. This way you are able to do it with your voice. So very useful way, and kind of a secret hidden way to add this functionality to your AirPods 4s. Now I want to talk a little bit about battery life as well as charging, and this first feature in particular is going to help your AirPods last longer, as this setting is going to help limit battery wear, making your battery last longer, and then of course by extension your AirPods 4s last longer as well. So let me show you how to activate this. We're going to jump into settings, and then once again we're going to tap onto AirPods right here. And then we are going to scroll all the way down here to where we find optimize battery charging, and you want to make sure that that setting is turned on. Now what will this do? Well, this is going to essentially stagger your charge. So let's say you plug in your AirPods to charge at night, like I think most people do. What it's going to do is when you plug in your AirPods first, it's going to charge from 0 up to 80%, but then wait with the remaining 20% till closer to when you typically unplug your AirPods, like say many hours later when you wake up. Now what that's going to do is it's going to stagger the charge so it won't charge as fast, and that's going to produce less heat, and heat is the #1 killer of battery health. So you want to really limit that as much as possible. So for that reason, having this feature on is going to preserve your battery health on your AirPods, and then by extension help them last longer. So this is a feature I highly recommend. By the way, this feature can also be enabled on your iPhone. I'm going to quickly show you how. So over on your main settings page, tap onto battery, and then from here we're going to tap onto charging, and then in here we're going to tap onto optimize battery charging and turn that on. That's going to enable the same feature on your iPhone as we just looked at your AirPods, helping your AirPods, and in this case also your iPhone, last longer. Now I want to talk a little bit about charging, because did you know there's actually 3 different methods to charge your AirPods 4 with active noise cancellation. So the first method is going to be the most common, also my recommended method, and that is simply using a USB-C cable. So plug that in the bottom, and as you can see it will start to charge. Now the reason I recommend this most is because it is a wired connection versus a wireless connection, and using a wired connection is going to produce less heat. So much like in the setting that we looked at earlier, this is going to contribute to preserving your battery health over the long run. So this is definitely what I recommend. However, the alternative ways that are also really useful, depending on which chargers you have with you, are, for example, also the ability to charge with your Apple Watch charger. So right here, I've got a simple Apple Watch charger, and I can place on the AirPods 4s, and as you can see, they will then start to charge. Now, what is also cool is that the magnets are going to be strong enough to hold on to the Apple Watch charger. So really useful if you're traveling and you're packing your Apple Watch charger. Now, of course, the final method to charge your AirPods 4s is going to be with a MagSafe or wireless charger. So here I've got a MagSafe charger. We can go ahead and place that on, and as you can see, that will then start to charge. Now the magnets unfortunately won't be strong enough to hold on to the MagSafe charger. That will only work if you're using the Apple Watch charger, but still any wireless Qi wireless charger or MagSafe charger will, technically speaking, charge your AirPods. Now the final method that I think is really cool, especially if you're traveling and you have no charger nearby, what you can do is charge your AirPods using your iPhone. So here I've got a USB-C to USB-C cable. I can plug in my iPhone on one side, and as you can see, my AirPods will now charge. This is great if you don't have a charger on the go and you want to use your iPhone's battery to charge them. Now, it is important to remember though that the regular AirPods 4, so the non-active noise cancellation models, will not be able to charge wirelessly and will only charge with the USB-C cable, but this is my recommended way of charging anyway. All right, now I want to show you how to pair your AirPods 4s to a new device. This is different on the AirPods 4s than it was on any previous AirPod, where previously you had a little button on the back to enter pairing mode. The AirPods 4s don't have any button, so let me show you how to enter pairing mode here on your AirPods 4. So first of all, what you want to make sure to do is have both of your AirPods within the charging case. You'll see that we get the little battery light indicator turned on. What you want to do is double tap like so right onto where that light is, and as you can see, it will start blinking in white, and we have now entered pairing mode, and that's going to allow us to connect to a new device just like any other Bluetooth device. So simply double tap right where the button is, right where that light is once you open your AirPods. Now you may be wondering, how does the AirPod know that I've just double tapped them? Well, the AirPods 4s actually have a small accelerometer within the charge case, and that's going to be able to detect the motion of you tapping it. So a very typical overly engineered way of creating this new pairing functionality within the AirPods 4s, but it does work quite well. And now, similar to pairing, I also want to show you how to reset your AirPods 4s. This is great if, say, ever you are having difficulties with connection or audio problems. A simple reset can often fix these issues. Or secondly, if you are selling them or passing them down or whatever, you want to make sure that they are fully reset so that the new person can pair them and not have any of your personal data lingering on the AirPods, like, for example, the settings that you've set up. So to do this, just like before, you want both AirPods in the case. Then we're going to double tap once, twice, 3 times. So essentially double tap 3 times, and as you can see, it will now be flashing in orange, and once again it'll be completely reset, and as you can see here, we now should have the screen come up on your device to pair them. And there we go, just like a new pair of AirPods, and then you can connect them from scratch just like they were new. So once again, to pair to a new device, you want to double tap once, and then to reset them fully, double tap 3 times. And next, I want to quickly show you the best way to take your AirPods out of the case, as I often find people trying to sort of pinch to take the earbuds out, but it's kind of cramped, so it can sometimes be a bit difficult. Instead, I find the best way is to just take your index finger, place it behind the earbud, and then simply push back. As you can see, that will allow you to instantly take either earbud out of the case, and I find this to be the best way, as it kind of slides out just like so. So that just requires one finger instead of having to kind of pinch to get your buds. And now I want to show you some essential widgets to add since you have your AirPods connected, specifically talking about a really powerful battery widget to set up on your phone to get a very good view of the battery life on your AirPods, as of course the little light indicator here only tells you so much. So let's go ahead and add a new widget. Now you can of course choose to add this on your lock screen or your home screen, as well as here on this side screen. I'm going to add it here because I've got a lot of room. We're going to tap onto edit, then tap onto add widget, and then we are going to search for battery. Tap onto batteries, and then we can go ahead and choose the size. I like this middle size. I think that's good enough, especially because it still shows you the percentages where the first size does not. We'll go ahead and add that, and there we go. Tap on done, and as you can see, we now have a handy widget that will show you the battery life of your connected devices, including your iPhone, Apple Watch, and also your AirPods. And what I like especially about this widget is it won't just show you the battery life of the case, but also the battery life of the individual buds, as of course these are the things that are going to run out of battery first and are also most important and may not be the same depending on whether you use one AirPod more than the other. I often like to have just one in, and this gives you a great overview. Now over on the lock screen, we can add a widget as well. So to do this, we're going to tap and hold, then tap onto customize, tap onto your lock screen, and then here we have your widget. So we'll go ahead and tap onto that to add a widget, and we tap onto batteries, and then we can add this single widget right here. As you can see, that's now going to show us the battery life here of whatever connected device we have. And to make sure that it's showing the right device, we can tap on that once more. We can turn off automatic, and then we can actually choose which device the battery you want it to show. So you can have it show your AirPods or things like your iPhone. In this case, let's do the AirPods case here. And as you can see, there we go. It will then permanently show you the battery life of your AirPods case right on your lock screen as well. And now let's talk about hearing health. Hearing health is of course so important, and if you're not careful, you can permanently worsen this with loud music. So to keep track of this and make sure your music is not too loud, Apple have actually built in a really handy tool to give you live feedback on the volume of your music. So to do this, we're going to access the control center here on your iPhone, and as you can see, I actually already have it there added, but if you don't, we're going to add this new control by tapping on the little plus icon that we find here, and then we'll tap on to add control, and the control's name is going to be hearing. There we go. That's the one you want to look for. Of course, I already have it, but if you don't, you want to tap on that, and that's then going to be added to your control center. From here, you can also, of course, move it around and position it to where you like. But now that you have this control in place, let me show you how this works. I'm going to take out an AirPod here, and let's go ahead and play some music. So as you can see, as I turn it up, more dots will fill, and if I turn it all the way up and get too loud, I'm going to get a warning like so, and that's going to give you a very immediate feedback on whether your music is too loud. And you can also expand the view by tapping into it, and that will give you an even more detailed view. And once again, this will adjust live as I adjust the volume here of my music. So very important to make sure you're not listening too loud and to make sure that your hearing health is protected. All right, so now I want to show you a series of small but very valuable quality of life improvement settings and changes to make your AirPods 4 experience even better. So what we're going to do is jump into settings, then go back here to where we find your AirPods, and then we're going to scroll down. First of all, here, this is also where you can control your noise control menu, so you can either turn this off, turn on or off transparency mode. But once again, a quicker way to do this is in the control center. Tap and hold onto your volume control, and then we can adjust this from here as well, like we looked at earlier. This here is very useful. Now earlier when we looked at the different gestures and controls of the AirPods 4, one of them was the press and hold gesture, and there is actually a way to customize this further. So here, if we scroll down into the settings page, we have press and hold AirPods, and we can actually customize either AirPod. So to the left here, you can have that either switch between your noise control or Siri. Now I like to set this to noise control, and then within noise control, you can also choose which profiles you want it to cycle between. So my suggestion is to only set 2, because that way you're going to go from one to the other, where if you've got 3 or all of these profiles activated, it's got a lot to cycle through each time. So I think to keep things simple, I let it switch between my transparency mode as well as my noise cancellation mode as I as I long press either stem of the AirPod. And you can set this individually to either AirPod, but because I sometimes like to have just one in versus 2, I like it to be identical on both. And then beneath that, we have your call controls, which too can be customized. So we can actually choose whether we want a mute or unmute to be triggered with a press once or press twice. You can also have the end call be press once or press twice. So if you don't really find yourself using the mute function, you may want to instead assign that press once function to end a call. I personally think it can be accidentally triggered. You don't want to accidentally end your call, so I like that confirmation of a double press instead. And then scrolling down here to microphone, we can go ahead and tap in to use either microphone on either AirPod. So let's say one of your mics is just a little bit better, or one of them is perhaps not working anymore. You can assign to use one microphone on one AirPod, or let's say you only really stick to one AirPod only, you can have it specifically use that microphone. Personally, I like to set this to automatic. This way, regardless of which AirPod I'm using, whether it's both or only the left or only the right, it will automatically use the microphone of the specific AirPod that is in my ear. And I want to talk about auto device switching. Now, this is one of my personal favorite features of the AirPods. However, my wife actually doesn't like this feature. So to give a quick example, let's say I'm switching between my Mac and my iPhone. Depending on which device I'm using, my AirPods will detect this and automatically connect to whichever device I'm using at that given time. Now, this will be on by default, but my wife, for example, she likes to manually decide when the AirPods connect to her MacBook versus her iPhone. And if you're like that too, let me show you where to change this setting. So over in settings, tap on AirPods again, and then we're going to scroll down to where we find connect to iPhone. Connect to this iPhone right here, and then instead of turning manually, we can go ahead and tap on when last connected to this iPhone. So it will only connect back to your phone once you manually do so, and vice versa. And now I want to show you some useful accessibility settings to change. Now the AirPods 4s actually have their own little accessibility menu with a lot of cool features inside. So once again, we're going to go into settings, then tap onto your AirPods, and then we're going to scroll down to where we find accessibility right here. And in here, we can go ahead and choose to change the press speed. So for example, if you have a double press of the stem, do you want that to be registered as slower or faster? We also have the duration for a press and hold. Do you want that command to trigger more quickly? Then you can set it to shorter or or shortest if you like as well. So that'll be the difference between a single press and a long press. But I think the most important feature here or setting is going to be noise cancellation with one AirPod. Now I've mentioned a few times that sometimes I like to use just one AirPod, but for some reason by default it won't allow you to have noise cancellation for just one in at a time. I'm not sure why. I like to still have it even if it is just with one. So turning on this feature will enable noise cancellation even if you're wearing just one. Next, I want to talk about spatial audio. Now, spatial audio is a very interesting and I think cool feature of the AirPods 4, but it's not something I found myself using often. And I think it's not something that you want if you're just, commuting and you're listening to music on your iPhone. Now, if you're not sure what this feature does, is let's say I'm playing a song here on my phone. What it's going to do is, if turned on, let me show you where to do this actually. In Control Center, tap onto your volume control, and then here we have spatial audio, and then we can turn on to head tracking. And what that's going to do is it's going to essentially choose just follow the location of my iPhone and play the music from that direction. So if I'm tilting my head to the left and right, the music too will tilt left and right depending on where my phone is placed in space. Now, what this is meant to really help with is immersion. Let's say if you're watching a movie, the sound will sound like it's coming from the direction of your phone rather than from left and right. But in my opinion, it's kind of actually breaks some of the immersion because the audio, it's less full and you're less in it. So especially with music, like I said, or if my phone is in my pocket, I don't want to hear the sound from from down under me from within my pocket. So this is a feature I definitely don't really use, and I recommend most people turn off, again, unless you're watching a movie. But if you're just using your AirPods to listen to music, I recommend you turn this off. So go into Control Center, tap and hold on your volume control here, and then we're going to turn this either to fixed or just off entirely. I find fixed makes it sound a little bit like you're listening to your music in a large room, where off just gives you typical, standard 2.1 stereo sound, the same sound coming from your left and right earbud, the way I think it's meant to be experienced and the way that the artist also intended for it to be experienced. So I think for most people, it's better off turning off spatial audio. All right, this next one is really important, and that is a feature that will allow you to potentially hear oncoming notifications on your AirPods. Now, this is an interesting feature, so I do want to show you, and I think for some people this can be very useful, but there's also people that may not want this feature, and I'll explain why. So either way, it is important that you change the settings and set this up correctly. So first of all, to turn this on, we are going to go into settings, and then this time scroll down to where we find notifications right here. And then we have announce notifications, and we can go ahead and turn this on, and then we can choose to announce when you're wearing your headphones or your AirPods. And then from here, we can go in and choose which applications you want a notification to be announced from. So my recommendation would be to only set this for important apps like your calls, messaging apps, maybe certain Teams apps, for example. That way, when something comes through, it will be read out to you in your ear, but you don't want other, utility apps or games, things like this, to be disrupting your music or podcast or whatever it is you're listening to. So this I think is useful so long as you audit this and make sure you're not getting too many notifications coming in, disrupting your music. Now, the one reason that I personally actually don't use this feature is not just because I don't want to be disrupted for my music, but it's because to turn this feature on, you do need to enable or allow Siri to be activated when your phone is locked. So to give you an example, you can see my phone is currently still locked, as you can see, but I can still press and hold to activate Siri. Now, this is something that I personally, from a privacy and security perspective, don't really like, as there's a lot that Siri can do on your phone, and I wouldn't want that to be accessible when my phone is locked, if ever it's, say, were lost or stolen. So for that reason, this is a feature that I actually don't activate on my personal AirPods. You may view this differently and actually find the cost benefit of having your notifications read out to be more useful and turn this on. My job, though, is to present you with both sides. So one side, you can have that useful feature of hearing your notifications, but the other, I think you do sacrifice a little bit of security and privacy by needing to allow Siri to be accessible when your phone is locked. So I want to show you both sides, and then you can decide which is best for you. By the way, if you want more security and privacy tips specifically for your iPhone, I have done an iPhone settings to change video, which I'll leave linked at the end of this video, which is very important for any iPhone user to make sure you get the most out of your phone, and again, keep it secure and private. And next, I want to show you a feature that is going to be specific to the AirPods 4s with ANC, and that will allow you to hear voices better. So let me show you what I mean. So if we go into settings, tap onto your AirPods, and then scroll down to where we find conversational awareness, and we can go ahead and turn this on. By the way, a quicker way to turn this on or off is in Control Center, tap and hold on that volume control, and right here, we can turn on or off. So what does this feature do? Well, this feature, let's say I'm listening to some music right now, and I start speaking, it will then detect that I've started speaking and immediately lower the volume, I would say by about 80%. I can still very subtly hear the music, but it is very subtle. It's also going to switch over to transparency mode to let in the other person's voice. Let's say I'm speaking to a cashier or a waiter, taxi driver, whatever it may be, to let their voices come through and allow myself to speak and hear them as well. And as soon as I stop speaking, around 2 seconds after, the music volume will go back up to 100 or wherever you left it off. So this, I think, is a useful feature. The only caveat I will say with this is I found myself when I first turned this on, it activated quite frequently, and I noticed it wasn't just activating because I was speaking to someone, but it was because I was actually singing to my own music. So if you are someone like me who tends to sing to their own music, this is something that will trigger even when you're singing to yourself. So like I said, there's a quick way to turn this on or off if you choose to. Another feature I want to show you is called Ambient Volume Mode, and this here is really useful. So if we scroll down into the main settings page of your AirPods, we're going to go ahead and tap onto Personalized Volume, and then we can turn this on. Now what that's going to do is it's going to adjust the volume of your music based on your surroundings. So let's say you are in a busy train station, the volume of your music will automatically go up to help compensate for that noise, but if you're listening at home, the volume will go down, and of course it will do so within parameters that are safe for your hearing to protect your hearing as well. This, I think, can be a very useful feature. I think for many people, if you just want to plug in your AirPods, set and forget, don't worry about the volume. But personally though, I like to have control over my volume, especially because I think between different songs, sometimes I like to have it a little bit louder, sometimes a bit quieter, depending on the genre. So I like to still have that control. However, if you like for your volume to just be automatically adjusted, not have to think about it, this right here is a feature you will want to turn on. Now next I want to show you a really cool hidden feature, and that is the ability to play some built-in soothing sounds right from your AirPods 4. For example, like rainfall, a fire burning, or a bright or dark noise as well. And you can do this right on your AirPods using your iPhone. Let me show you how to set this up. So over in settings, what we're going to do is scroll down to where we find accessibility right here. And then we're going to go to audio and visual right here in audio and visual. And then we're going to tap onto background sounds, and then we're going to turn this on to activate it. And right now I'm listening to some rain, and we can actually change the different sounds as well. So we have night, which is kind of like chirping crickets. We have fire, like a fireplace. Rain, I think rain is great. And you can have these sounds playing, and you can also adjust the volume independently, and you can also stop the sound automatically when your phone locks. So this is great if, say, you're on a long flight and you just need some noise, but you don't want the plane noise or that crying baby or whatever to help you sleep, for example, or even at home. I know there's some people that sleep with AirPods, and this perhaps will be a great thing to fall asleep to or to help you fall asleep. So great functionality to have this built in right on your AirPods. And once you activate this within accessibility, what is also cool is within this hearing feature that we looked at earlier, I showed you how to set that up, we can actually tap on that, and then from there we can actually activate your background sounds much easier. So we can tap on the music notes to start playing, and then we can choose between your different types of sound as well. Again, rain is going to be my favorite. So great to have this functionality, this little shortcut there in the control center as well for when you need it. Now next I want to show you a really important safety feature that applies to the AirPods 4s, but also other AirPods in case you have them. And over in settings, to do this, we're going to jump it back into accessibility, and then we're going to scroll down to where we find sound recognition right here, and then you want to make sure that that here is turned on. Now it is downloading a quick little update that is going to be required, but here you can choose which sounds you want your AirPods to recognize and then alert you if those sounds are heard. For example, a fire, a smoke, let's say a smoke alarm, or you have, say, like your dog barking, your cat, even a doorbell. I think doorbell is also quite useful. This way, if you are listening to your music loud, you've got active noise cancellation on, and even if you are just sitting at home, you may miss that doorbell or even a fire alarm or whatever it may be, glass breaking. You have a bunch to choose from. Baby crying, that's great for parents. And if your AirPods hear that noise or one of the noises that you select, your iPhone will get a notification to let you know that those noises have been heard. So you can see that in some cases this is useful to not, say, miss your food delivery so you don't miss the doorbell, but in other instances like fire or smoke alarm, this can actually be life-saving. So I highly, highly recommend you turn this on for your AirPods and activate all the important sounds here that you may want to be alerted to. Now, this feature is also available on HomePods. If you have a HomePod or HomePod Mini, you can also set this up for that device too, and I highly recommend you do, particularly for the HomePod. If, say, you're away from home and for whatever reason your fire alarm goes off, you will be notified. All right, so this next one is a little bit sneaky, but I'll let you use this wisely, and that is the ability to listen in secret. So if we go ahead and go back to that hearing control that we previously added to the control center, and if we tap into that, we can actually also tap onto live listen. And if I go ahead and activate this, I have one AirPod in, I now hear my voice. So the AirPods will play the sound recorded from the microphone within your iPhone. So you can be in one room, your iPhone can be in any other location. The sound that your iPhone picks up will then be carried over to your AirPods. So this is an interesting little Easter egg feature. Honestly, I'm not sure why this existed. I'm sure it can be convenient in some cases, but like I said, this is the type of feature that you want to make sure that you use safely, and of course, respecting of others' privacy as well. But I do want to show you one more functionality and one more useful feature of the AirPods 4. So I hope this video has given you a very detailed outline overview of all the things that these AirPods are capable. I have to be honest, when I was researching this video and just playing around with all the settings, something I'd love to do to really get to know and get the most out of these devices, I was surprised by how much these little things are capable of and how far you can go in customizing them and unlocking new features. So if this video was helpful to you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and also leave a like and subscribe to support the channel and see more videos like this in the future. Like I said, if you haven't seen it yet, I've done a similar iPhone settings / tips and tricks video that I will leave linked on screen right now that I highly recommend you watch. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.